Hey, Morningstar small groups. I hope your small groups are going well, and it is so exciting to see the emails going back and forth to see how this flesh study is connecting with all of us. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to begin this week's small group with you. As you probably know by now, this week is about that scary part of you taking on the flesh of Jesus, having a God conversation with those that are far from God. But let me encourage you, this isn't as scary as it might sound. Now, I think of one reason it can be scary is because we're kind of afraid of how people are going to respond to it. I mean, throughout their lives, many people have had that experience where someone has witnessed to them and then lived a life in complete contradiction, or others have experienced people trying to save them without even building a relationship with them and casting all sorts of judgment and condemnation on them. Let me say this again, that like I did this past weekend in worship, don't be that guy or gal. You know, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is 1 Peter 3:15, and it says this, "But in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you, to give the reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect." So first it tells us to revere Christ as Lord of our lives. In other words, Christ is my king and I am his follower. And when he places people in my path, I work as his advocate. The second part of this verse says something amazing. It says to always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks you for the reason you have hope. Now that's curious, isn't it? First, it assumes that you demonstrate hope in your daily lives. You see, we can place ourselves around others all day long, but if we don't demonstrate faith, hope, and love and the fruit of the Spirit, they're never going to ask us. You see, the conversation begins with Jesus being Lord of our lives first. He has transformed us so much, it's obvious to those around us. Finally, the verse says this, do this with gentleness and respect. Quite honestly, this is my favorite part of the verse. Whenever we give answer to the hope we have in Jesus, we must remember to be gentle and respectful. It's not a competition. It's not a time to argue. It's not a time to debate. It's a time to share the hope of Christ with gentleness and respect. As I said this weekend, there are two kinds of people out there. Those of us who love the truth and have a hard time showing love, and then those of us that always demonstrate love but have a hard time telling the truth. As you discuss this week, remember this. Truth without love isn't truth, and love without truth isn't love. Let me say that again. Truth without love isn't truth, and love without truth isn't love. One of the great quotes from Hugh's book this week comes on page 167, and it says this, Jesus shows us that there's never a change of mind unless there's a change of heart. And there will never be a change of heart without a conversation between trusted friends. This week during small group, many of you are going to be challenged with Hugh Halter's story of the Colorado baker that refused to bake a cake for a gay wedding. Now, people in your group will probably land on all sides with this issue, but I want to remind you to be graceful and don't get any fights. Remember this as you guys process those questions. There will never be a change of heart without a conversation between trusted friends. Let me ask you, what friend may you need to reach out to this week? What friend has God put in your life to begin his incarnation? Think about that throughout this week and have a great small group.